Brittany had recently lost her sister and found herself thrust into the role of caretaker for her sister's infant. Since bringing the baby into her home, her days had transformed into a series of nightmares. The moment the infant arrived, strange occurrences began to unfold. Katie, the sibling of Brittany Mayer, had been ill for an extended period. The ordeal between them was escalating as they resided in separate territories. Still, Brittany always found a way. By the time she managed to journey to New Jersey to visit her sister, it was beyond too late. Brittany was present in the medical center at the moment her sister left the world. It was then that her troubles had just started. Brittany could feel the warmth of her tears flowing down her face. As she clutched her sister's chilly hand, it was a moment to release her as the medical staff concealed her face with a cover. Katie had struggled a long fight against her ailment, but Brittany was aware that her sister finally found tranquility at the end. She had spent the entire day with her, a day that vanished in the blink of an eye. Everything unfolded too swiftly. Brittany could recall Katie speaking in hushed tones, beckoning Brittany to promise her something, and then it dawned upon her. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and click the notification bell for more amazing stories. Brittany had vowed to look after Kylie, Katie's little 5-month-old girl. Despite her love for her sister and niece, she was unsure how she was going to fulfill this. Brittany, age 36, a resident of Manhattan, had thrived as an attorney in a highly recognized firm without any intention of having children. Now, she had given a grave assurance to her sister on her deathbed to become the caregiver to her child. Getting ready for a complete transformation in her life, Brittany realized she was Kylie's last resort since her father was out of the picture. Observing the baby was her responsibility, being a member of her family exactly what Katie would have preferred. Concurrently, she was scared beyond belief. Being completely unaware of how to manage a baby, how she would succeed in becoming a full-time caregiver, was totally out of her grasp. The responsibility seemed like a weight on her shoulders. With newly defined responsibilities, Brittany decided to learn from her sister, who had managed full-time employment whilst taking care of the baby simultaneously and combating a fatal illness. If Katie had the potential to do it, surely so did Brittany. During this moment of retrospection, a nurse arrived carrying little sleeping Kaylee in her stroller, oblivious to her mother's departure. The nurse glanced at Brittany, who looked emotionally worn out. She reassured Brittany, "It'll be all right. Her essentials are packed in these bags." It felt like her mother knew that her end was nearing. "Seems like every required thing for the baby is right here for you. All the best. Feel free to reach out to me whenever required. I'll be pleased to assist," said the nurse in a friendly tone. Brittany expressed her gratitude toward the nurse and embraced her for her help. A moment of tearful release in the nurse's arms made Brittany realize that she had to remain strong for a child relying on her. "Thank you so much," said Brittany. "You can expect to hear from me rather soon," she informed the medical aide, addressed as Maria. They shared another warm embrace before Brittany departed, accompanied by the tiny infant Kaylee in her portable cart. Upon reaching her dwelling place in the New York City borough of Manhattan, she felt utterly drained. Gratefully, Kylie had been asleep throughout the journey. Just after a short half-hour rejuvenation period, Brittany was disrupted by her infant's wails. The sound of Kylie crying at full volume was overwhelming for Brittany. It was difficult for her to reconcile with this new reality of parenting. She hastily prepared a bottle for Kylie, all while attempting to calm her. However, her efforts seemed fruitless as the loud crying persisted. As the temperature of the bottle's contents reached an appropriate warmth, she proceeded to gently draw it near Kylie's mouth, who started nursing immediately. It was apparent her sibling had anticipated her needs and taken thoughtful steps to address them. By exploring the various bags left behind, Brittany realized that Kylie was being nourished using the milk gathered by her mother's meticulous pumping. In Brittany's view, her sister was her hero. It was her sister's wish for Kylie to avoid formula, and there appeared to be an ample supply of collected milk to meet the infant's needs for some time. However, Brittany's challenges were far from over. Another noteworthy event was on the horizon. At the moment, she anticipated a recovery period. Kaylee's cries echoed again. She shuffled out of her bed. She muttered to herself, "Is this what my existence is now?" Insomnia. Gently, she lifted Kylie from her cradle and began swaying her. "Don't worry, small one. I understand you must miss your mom, and I feel the same way. She's looking down on us. You'll have me around for a long time, child. Familiarize yourself with this reality. I'll give all I can to meet your needs. I'll make sure we'll make your mom proud. I assure you," she said. The more she engaged with Kylie, the more placated she appeared. It seemed all she desired was to be held, but Brittany fathomed she couldn't sustain this all through the night. She was in dire need of some rest. Considering the lengthy and strenuous day she had just had, she had a multitude of tasks, which included planning a farewell ceremony for Katie. Despite an hour of rocking Kylie, she was nowhere close to sleeping. Brittany had anticipated her to be snoozing by now. However, Kaylee showed no inclination to close her eyes. Judging by the restful nap she had earlier in the day, her alertness at this time was understandable. Brittany was at a loss. She fought against her drooping eyelids. She understood that this was her reality henceforth, and getting accustomed to it was imperative for her well-being. The responsibility of bringing up young Kaylee was indeed a huge one. Yet the woman and aunt was oblivious to the developing situation. She attempted to shut her veiny eyelids and succumb to sleep. However, it was then that a feeling of unease washed over her, akin to the sense of dread when something seemed amiss. Chills slowly crept up her frame as anxiety grasped hold of her being. Could she deduce this strange turn of events? Brittany noticed a sudden change in temperature that was hard to dismiss. Everything appeared frostier, far more than it had been. At the onset, she considered her health, suspecting a fever. But the truth struck her when she reached for her mobile device on the bedside stand. It dawned on her that her body heat wasn't the problem. She activated the flashlight on her mobile and peeked at the thermostat mounted on her room wall. The thermostat had no misreading. Her room's temperature had plummeted 20 degrees. Herein lay the puzzling element. She proceeded to examine the meteorology application on her device, which indicated normal weather. A foreign, unsettling condition was rampant in her room. Why had it become a freezer? Yet, this wasn't the sole bizarre incident of the night. A whisker later, an unmistakable sound chilled her to the bone. It began subtly, like a house settling into itself before escalating into a resounding blast. Brittany was startled. The origin of the sound dawned upon her. It was from Kylie's room, the room she had transformed from a guest chamber to an infant sanctuary featuring a crib. Seemed like an unsound decision in hindsight. Her concern for Kylie was of paramount importance. The child had quietened down. Brittany had attempted to clear as much space as possible, but the room held plenty of stocked items. Apprehension seized her. Did a piece of furniture topple in the night, trapping little Kylie? Yet this explanation fell short when it came to the unaccountable cold. What was the reason for the frost? She donned a housecoat to protect herself from the cold, stepping out into the gloom-filled hallway. Brittany ventured into the passage, attempting to switch on the light fixtures. When they failed to respond, Residual fear surged within her. Did they lose electricity? With only her mobile's light cutting through the darkness, trepidation took hold as she moved down the corridor. She was finally at the door of the room. She slowly swung open. She subjected the room to necessary scrutiny before pushing back the shadows. The moment Brittany flushed the room with light from her device, Kylie's soft cries filled the air. But what condition was the child in? She quickly sprinted herself into the room and directed her gaze toward the crib. Realizing the state of affairs alleviated her worries immensely. She lifted and held Kylie, swaying gently. As her gaze fell upon the child, she saw her own sister mirrored in the baby's eyes. Memories of her cherished sister engulfed Brittany, threatening to drown her in a cascade of tears. Do you comprehend that you and I are all that each other have? These words, she softly whispered, as she held her sister's precious offspring in her arms. She had pledged to safeguard her no matter the odds. Yet chaos was lurking in the shadows, ready to strike without notice. Will she manage to keep the little one shielded? Kylie and Brittany found themselves rocking gently in the comforting chair in the nursery, a moment of calm. Brittany hummed the child into a peaceful slumber before carefully laying her down in her crib. Once Kaylee was settled, Brittany shuffled back to her own room, praying for peace in the hours ahead. An unanswered question about the unexplained decreasing temperature in the room remained lingering, but it was a matter she decided to observe for the time being. For now, she had to maintain a vigilant eye, ready for when the baby might rouse. Unbeknownst to Brittany, however, there was a factor she had missed, triggering the events to turn dire 100-fold without her realization. Brittany was completely spent as she slid into her bed. The day's weariness fogged up her mind. Each time she shut her eyes, the blank face of her sister came into view. A chill ran down her spine as she stared blankly at the ceiling. Torn between her thoughts and Kylie's continuous wails, she wondered, would she ever manage to catch some rest? Just as her fears were settling in, a shriek sliced the silence around her, making her bolt upright. The terror-filled cries echoed through the corridors, freezing Brittany in her spot. These cries, originating from Kylie's room, were nothing she had heard before. With each horrid wail, her fear heightened, believing the infant to be grievously hurt. Knowing she had to rush, she darted out of her room in an instant. As Brittany stepped out, she noticed that the chilly temperature had seeped into the hallway as well. What was causing her house to freeze was an unanswered question. Her heart thudded in her chest as she pushed open the door to Kylie's room. Kaylee's panicky cries were the only sound in the room, making Brittany clench her teeth in anxiety. What demon had taken hold of this tranquil room? What could possibly have led to such a horrific situation? She found herself rushing towards the crib, ignoring how her ears throbbed with every wailing. As she peered in, she found that Kylie was perfectly fine, except for the frantic screaming. Other than that, everything seemed ordinary. Brittany's heart sank at the sight of terrified Kaylee. Her mind swarmed with questions, wondering if the child missed her mother's presence. Yet, she was clueless that the issue was far greater and more sinister than she ever thought. Brittany cradled the inconsolable child into her arms, her heart tearing at the sight of Kaylee weeping. She held on to the child, who was navigating the world without the presence of a mother. Brittany, puzzled but determined, tilted her head at the child in her arms. She moved to sit back and held Kylie close, gently rocking as the screams continued. Brittany started to feel more relaxed, even though she wasn't aware of the root cause of the infant's misery. It took the child quite some time to get back to sleep, but once she did, Brittany knew it was unsafe to let her sleep unattended. Slowly and tenderly, she got up from her chair and moved the child to her room. Despite the overwhelming sadness stirring in her heart, Following the devastating events of the day, she recognized the need to stay resilient at this moment, and many more to come. In the process of arranging the pillows on the bed and positioning the baby delicately in the middle, she was already envisioning the strange turn her nights would take from this point onwards. Gazing at Kylie, who seemed to be in a deep slumber, evoked a sense of disbelief in Brittany, having witnessed so much chaos in just one day. Once a proud sister to her only sibling, she had now stepped into the shoes of a guardian for the little one. The change wasn't what she preferred, but it was all about Kylie now. Despite the exhaustion overwhelming her every cell, Brittany knew that any sound from Kylie would strip away sleep from her eyelids. All she could do was to remain patient and hope for the best. Yet to her surprise, perhaps it was the soothing motions that lulled Kylie to sleep, and she wasn't crying anymore. Eventually, Brittany did manage to fall into a fitful sleep. She was disturbed by haunting dreams of her sister and images of the helpless infant next to her. The responsibility of caring for another life was daunting for her. As she drifted in and out of sleep, she felt a missing piece in the puzzle. Kylie was distressed, and there was something that could alleviate her. But what that something was, Brittany didn't know. In the morning, Brittany was forlorn and exhausted, resulting in her making a call to her workplace to request a week off on the grounds of bereavement leave. Both remembrance of her sister and taking care of the baby were her priorities at that point. In the midst of planning her sister's funeral, she also sought a nanny to look after Kylie while she was occupied with work. During a quiet moment, sitting on the couch, a memory rushed back to her. It was a visit to Katie's house a few weeks ago, when Kylie was peacefully asleep in her crib. It's unbelievable. She hasn't woken up crying at night for 2 months. This intrigued Brittany because she was more accustomed to parents complaining about their children's endless crying. She began to suspect that something might be off with the baby. Brittany and Katie comfortably talked about the lovely Kaylee over cups of coffee. Brittany thought to herself, how peculiar. My coworker just had a baby. She's 9 months now, but she hasn't stopped crying all night ever since she was born. Brittany chuckled. Her sister's smirk caught her attention immediately. Brittany knew Katie had something entertaining to share. Apparently, I possess a small secret that ensures her dreamless nights, Katie smugly elucidated with a wink. Brittany, bemused, prodded her sister for the secret, but Katie playfully declined to divulge it. Someday, I'll let you in, Katie grinned, taking a sip of her beverage. Brittany felt the sting of tears prick her eyes at the memory. She wished she knew Katie's calming formula that seemingly put an end to the incessant crying. Her thoughts strayed towards Kylie, wondering if there was something wrong with her, and as if on cue, Kaylee started howling again. Brittany inhaled deeply, reminding herself to remain patient as she had risen from the cushioned seat. Kaylee was in her room, ensconced amidst an array of pillows. Brittany prepared a feeding bottle and then made her way to the room. Kylie settled instantly as she started sipping her feed, resting against her caretaker's heart. If only she could speak and articulate her problems, Brittany thought. Brittany suspected that the cause for Kylie's distress was rooted in trauma. Kylie had tragically lost her mother. It was only natural for her to crave the one who'd brought her into this world and nourished her. But there was something else that seemed to augment Kylie's crying. So engrossed was Brittany in providing flawless care that she overlooked the possible reason behind Kylie's tearful disposition. She was to realize it much later. The situation was no different that evening. She attempted to put Kylie to bed and tuck herself in, only for Kylie's crying to start anew. The propensity of Kylie's crying was perturbing her. What could possibly be eliciting this response? Katie would always boast about Kaylee's quality slumbers. Brittany couldn't help but think, was she the cause of the disruption? She was seated on the bed, holding Kylie close. The little girl lulled into a peaceful silence, her head resting over Brittany's chest. But this night seemed particularly dreadful. Every time she tried to put Kaylee to sleep close to her, Kylie would break into a shrieking cry. She disliked being put down and clung to her caregiver. That evening, as Brittany sat awake, cradling Kylie, rest seemed like a far cry. She dozed off intermittently, but mostly she kept awake, staring blankly at the wall. She couldn't shake off the feeling something was wrong with little Kaylee and worried if she would ever get better. In due course, the days swiftly morphed into a full week. As Brittany steadily became accustomed to nurturing the child, the ceaseless weeping began to escalate her apprehension. Demonstrating immense patience, she indulged in a fondness for Kylie. Notwithstanding, it was becoming overwhelming. The root cause of Kylie's distress seemed elusive. Was she failing as a guardian? She resolved to double her effort to fulfill Kylie's requirements. Hastily, she dashed towards her, lifting her in her arms. Cradling Kylie, she offered her water, but nothing eased her discomfort. Kaylee wasn't famished. She just appeared dispirited. Maybe she's fallen ill, she pondered. She felt compelled to get a professional opinion and arrange a visit with the pediatrician. Brittany was overcome with tension regarding Kylie's well-being. Although she couldn't make sense of the predicament, she relied upon the professional expertise of the doctor to illuminate the situation. As the upcoming session was scheduled, she securely installed the baby seat and drove Kaylee to the clinic. Upon entering the examination room, she prepared herself for the worst possible news. The pediatric office was a haven for children. Amid the turmoil, the doctor managed to conduct a comprehensive checkup. After a thorough examination, he was ready to disclose his findings. His countenance, however, suggested an element of uncertainty. He glanced in her direction while scratching his head. The visit seemed to be of no avail. Brittany's mind was fraught with a flurry of questions, but eventually the pediatrician declared Kaylee as being in good health. The baby was in the pink of health, and the fact that she was still on mother's milk was of added advantage. But why the relentless crying? The pediatrician suggested that the baby might be in the early stages of getting her baby teeth and prescribed an oral numbing ointment gel for Brittany to apply to Kaylee's gums. Returning home, Brittany applied the recommended gel onto Kylie's gums. However, the baby recoiled with displeasure and continued to weep. Brittany was at a loss for what to do next. Suddenly, she recollected the hospital nurse. Maybe she could lend a helping hand. Swiftly, Brittany dialed Maria's number, and after a couple of rings, Maria picked up the call. "Oh, Maria, I am grateful you picked up. I am beside myself. Dear Kaylee, when he sees her tears, I'm clueless," Brittany confessed with a sob. That's when Maria responded with an unexpected statement. "Oh, I do apologize. I have a hunch about what could be the issue. Soon, you will be getting a parcel. Have patience. Everything will fall into place," she retorted and ended the call. Brittany, growing impatient, was at a loss at Maria's vague statement. The only thing she yearned for was a resolution to the ceaseless sobbing. She held Kylie close, hoping for divine intervention. And then, as if answering her silent pleas, the doorbell echoed. Swiftly, she found a courier standing there, a carton bearing her name. Was this the box Maria was alluding to? Brittany desperately wished it was, still clueless about its contents. The package was as light as a feather. Upon unveiling the concealed mystery, she was taken aback. Nestled within was a charming, cocoa-colored teddy bear. As soon as the bear was removed, an enchanting silence replaced Kylie's crying. Brittany couldn't help but marvel. It seemed like wishes did come true. While Kylie lay in her cot, clutching her teddy bear, Brittany fished for something else within the box. A message from Katie. The words read, "Dear Britt, this teddy bear is Kai's possession. She needs it with her always, even when out for a stroll. Without it, her tears are boundless. I believe that this will aid you in caring for her. I am confident in you, grateful for you being a wonderful aunt and my sister. We are always with you. Forever yours, Katie." The note provoked overwhelming emotions in Brittany, as if the missive was a response from Katie, looking out for them from wherever she was. Her mobile phone vibrated with incoming text. It was Maria's response. "Did you receive the teddy bear? It was left behind for you. Hoping all is well, and remember I am there to assist you whenever you require." The contents of the message read, Brittany was thankful for Maria, truly an angel in disguise. She appreciated all the help she had been garnering on this unique journey and found solace in the invisible protective forces surrounding her. Looking back at the cot, Kaylee was fast asleep, her grip on the teddy bear never slackening. A wave of relief and tranquility washed over Brittany. The surprise package was a godsend, a refuge, a direct link to Katie. Brittany had begun to realize that the teddy bear was more than a toy. It existed as a pacifying entity, embodying Katie's love and the bond with her child. As the passing days unfolded, Brittany acclimated to her newfound role of being Kaylee's protector and caretaker. Striving to manage the pressure of her high-demand employment while grappling with her sister's distressing demise, the surprise backing she got from Maria and the teddy bear eased the shift slightly. The stuffed toy labeled Kylie's protector came to be an irreplaceable ally for Kylie. Brittany saw to it that the teddy bear was always accessible, whether nestled within the baby's crib or riding in her stroller, lending solace and reassurance to the infant. It felt as though Katie's aura was ever present, steering them through challenging moments. Brittany sensed her sister's spirit constantly with her. Brittany turned to guidance from manual guides, parenting discussion platforms, and now and then from Maria, who was always merely a dial away. As she journeyed through the highs and lows of motherhood, she unearthed the delights and trials of nurturing her niece. Kaylee's beaming grins, her initial utterances, and her tiny fingers clutching hers, slowly subsumed the early restless evenings and numerous fits of despair. Notwithstanding the tears and restless hours, Brittany drew courage from the affection she nurtured for her niece and the cherished memory of her sister. She resolved to be the ultimate aunt and caregiver, and as Kaylee matured, she discerned that she had received the ultimate blessing in the form of an infant she had never expected. A duty that altered her existence in ways she hadn't foreseen. That concludes our story. What are your thoughts on being a parent and taking full responsibility for a small infant? Please share your experiences in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more moving stories. Until next time. Binding bonds through beautiful tales. Thank you for watching.